Hello and welcome to another episode of Father and Joe. I'm Joe Rockey here with Father Boniface. And Father, this episode releasing the Tuesday following Easter has really had me thinking about, again, specific examples of people's interaction with Jesus from the Bible. And I want to focus upon those who had the feeling of absolute trust in Jesus. And there's a couple of different examples that come readily to my mind, not saying that these are all of them. There might even be a better example that you know of off the top of your head that I'm blanking here. But I think of when Jesus is approached by the Roman soldier, the Roman commander, I guess, that and says, I have a soldier who's hurt. We can't see him right now. He's far away from here. If you just say he's fixed, I trust you and I know he'll be good by the time I get back. You don't even need to bother showing up. That pure, absolute, I trust you and this will work. And I think of another example of the woman who just knew if she touched Jesus, she would be healed. And she reaches out and she just, gets a fingertip to touch him and then boom, she's healed. And in both of those circumstances, Jesus using them as examples of your trust, your faith, I don't even know what the right word is, has healed you because you stepped up and you believe that at the end of the day that I'm capable of doing this and that it will work. And I think of that, and then I think of the many other people who, even though they're with Jesus constantly, aren't able to get to that state. And what does it take to make that leap from regular apostle who's with him the whole time, who, yes, I've seen Jesus do everything as firsthand as I can be. I think of St. Thomas in this regards, because all of his gospels are coming up here. I won't believe until I can put my hand in his side or my finger in his holes. He's an apostle. He was with Jesus the whole time. And then we see this people who weren't Jesus the whole time. I mean, the Roman soldier isn't even Jewish, but he knows, he believes in him that everything will be taken care of with his request. And my question for this episode is, how do we, as people here today, make that transition in faith? Because clearly it takes more than just seeing everything with our own eyes. How do we actually do it?
Make the transition in faith.
Yes, from just understanding and believing to full out, I know that this will work. Because to me, that's the difference. That Roman commander knew Jesus had healed him. He didn't need to see it. He didn't need to have Jesus show up. That woman who touched Jesus' clothes and got healed, she knew it would happen. So how do we, I guess that's maybe the question. How do we go from belief, I hope this works, to knowing it will work? How do you do that? Because I think that's one of the great questions that we all have to go through on our own spiritual journey at some point.
Yeah, the need that each of us have for a level of demonstration as we grow in trust is going to be a little bit different. It is in some way the entire question around evangelization, a level of trust by which we are willing to really take a step forward in intentional discipleship, drop our nets and follow Jesus, actually get up from the tax collector post and respond to his call. So what's enough initial trust to be able to take that risk? And that's going to depend on a whole variety of factors. But of course, it's not a once and done kind of behavior. Growing in trust more and more, similar to what we were talking about in the last episode about letting that relationship with Jesus extend to our entire life rather than just this miracle, this desperate need, this particular act of faith, this question. So letting our relationship with him extend to our whole life is again an area of deeper and deeper trust in him, that letting him in there isn't going to wreck things. I know that this area of my life works pretty well. I don't want to disturb it by letting somebody else into it, even if that's Jesus. those are the kinds of things that we tend to harbor in our hearts. And so the question of initial trust, how do we approach him and ask? How do we follow him and make a choice for him? Yeah, again, that's a combination of his grace. So we don't actually have faith without his grace. It's not something that we earn and simply do for ourselves. It's not something that we manufacture on our own. It does depend on his grace, but as he is extending that invitation to us, how do we respond to that? Well, normally we grow in trust by demonstration. Someone says, I'm going to do something, and they actually do it. And repeated demonstrations develop more trust. Someone says, I can do something, and they demonstrate they can actually do it. We're moving from a promise to a fulfillment. And a lot of times we need that with God as well, that he says he will always be there. Will he always be there? Well, he showed up in this situation and that situation. I'm willing to take an act of faith. I'm willing to trust that he's going to show up in yet another situation. And so those are the kinds of steps that help us to grow with him. A lot of times what happens in the life of discipleship and through evangelization, when there's a more significant time of conversion, as would be the case in my own life, a lot of times there's some additional grace up front. Things fall into place more readily. We're able to see him more clearly. We can name him in different situations. And so the weight of repeated opportunities, I ask for help and it shows up. I ask for help again and it shows up. I ask for help again and it shows up. And suddenly I'm willing to really believe, well, maybe there's something to this whole thing. And a lot of times that's the initial push for us. And there's a little more grace at the outset. And then God steadily pulls that back. Will we trust when things go wrong? Will we trust when he doesn't show up immediately? Will we trust when he doesn't do it the way that we want him to do it? And that's where the trust really deepens and stretches and becomes a more descriptive characteristic of our whole life. That's where we start living a life of discipleship, a life of faith. So that's that's a little pathway of growth along that question of faith, making transitions in faith to place our trust more fully in him.
Yeah, that is probably one of those things that's easier said than done, as the expression goes. And but I love the fact that sometimes you just know what you need to do to be able to work towards it. To give an analogy that came into my head, one of the things that when we were playing high school football, it was on the wall. You had to be able to lift X amount. And sure, when you came in as a freshman, that seemed like a really impossible number until you saw, whoa, people who are 2 years older than me actually are able to do this. If I keep working at this and listening to this, I'll be able to do it as well. And that's one of the things that I love about the faith is that we have these examples too in the saints, that they were able to go through and show in different circumstances how to rely and trust upon Jesus and do truly magnificent things. And I think that's one of the things that really can help people as they go through is, first off, there are so many saints, there's no way to learn about each and every single one of them. But to be open to being exposed to one, there's certain sites that will just give you a saint of the day and give you a little overview. But just basically inquiring about some other people who might have had similar circumstances. Hell, I'm sure at this point you probably can have ChatGPT refer you the saint for the problem you're thinking about at this point, or some other similar service. And I would fully recommend doing that, learning what's going on and being open, and from our last episode, with kindness and curiosity of your own life, and seeing some saint that's gone through it, because this challenge, this transition, to me, is what keeps the relationship of Christ, the miracle in which he has given us all, burning throughout all of us. So I know, Father, I just tried to expound upon the challenge of what it is that you told and the importance of doing it. But I really love that idea of the saints, and toot my own horn. But what other ideas do you have that people can do this, knowing that it's not easy, and there's also no guarantee that you're actually going to get there? So how do we help people get along that way to, it's worth it, you should keep trying it, and it's beneficial for you? How do we communicate that message?
Well, in some sense, there is a guarantee that you will get there if you don't give up moving in that direction, because God is faithful and He wants us to arrive at a place of faith by which we can be with Him forever. And so He will not be withholding His grace. He will give us what we need, and He knows best when we need it. So there is a reason for hope. It's a hope that will not disappoint. If you set out on the path of wanting to develop a deeper relationship with God and trust Him more, it will happen. And so, again, the pathways, the timing, whether we like it or not, or however He works with us, those things, those questions are different questions. But we will get there if we set out on that path. He has a vested interest. He has already chosen us, and He will bring His good work to completion. So how do we set out? Your observation about the saints, we can also apply to our brothers and sisters here on earth, that when saints travel in packs, and we need each other. We need the support of each other. We need the witness of each other. Do you have to have the miracle, or could your neighbor, your friend, your spouse, your child have the miracle? What do you need to see that God is faithful and that you can trust Him? Do you need to have all the experiences, or can you learn from other people's experiences? That's obviously what we receive in part in the Scripture, in part in the lives of the saints. We see the witness of those who had similarly hard circumstances and trusted, and the Lord delivered them and brought them through to completion, even better than they would have been able to do for themselves or imagine. And likewise, we see those examples in our own lives, and in the lives of fellow parishioners and neighbors, family members. And so our life and community is also an important one. And then these are the kinds of things, wisdom is the kind of thing that only happens by doing it. And trust is the kind of thing that only grows by trying it. So we don't grow in trust in the abstract. We only grow in trust in the concrete. And so actually trying things out and taking a step of faith. If we can't take a big step of faith, take a small step of faith. If we can't take a big leap, take a small step. Do what you can, not what you can't. But we're only going to grow in it by doing it. And so we need to keep finding ways that we lean on and trust in Him as much as we are able to do now, knowing that that's the best we can do now. But when we do it now, He will be faithful. We will see how it plays through, and we will be able to keep growing along that path of faithful discipleship.
So, Father, I've seen this in my own life. I've certainly seen it in recordings with you, is that when we do that, just kind of going off of instinct and just giving the answers as your feel are coming out without as much premeditated thought of this is what I'm going to say, I tend to find that, for me at least, the answers are better, and especially when we're talking about elements of faith and relationships. And I think this goes back to what you were saying as far as kindness and curiosity of how it would look like with Jesus in our life, and not trying to put up walls between this portion of my life and this portion of my life over here. So there is a ton of scientific studies that show people truly cannot do compartmentalization of your brain. It's not possible. What's going to happen is eventually the worst case scenario of each part of your brain is going to flow into every relationship. If you're a horrible driver who wants to cut everyone off and is all about me, that will come into your relationship as a boss, your relationship as a spouse, your relationship as a parent. It's the way that it is. So I think that trying to remove that intentionality of, I want to have Jesus here with me in this part of my life, but I'm going to block him out from this part of my life, is the one of the ultimate disservices you can do to yourself. And I might leave this as the homework for people to do between this week and next week, is to seriously sit down and ponder, where am I afraid to let Jesus in? And maybe why is that? And going through that exercise, I think will come for a personal way, envelop all of the things in which we've discussed here in this episode. So, Father, I do want to give you the opportunity to give the last word, to give guidance through that exercise that people will be doing through the following week.
Yeah, I think that we do actually live somewhat bifurcated lives. We shouldn't, but the work towards integration, that I am actually the same in all different areas of my life, is actually work. We do tend to compartmentalize and behave in a certain way in one place and differently than another. And so, yeah, just sort of noticing, it's one way to make an examine at the end of the day, is to say, where was the Lord throughout my day? Go hour by hour and say, did I have any reference to him? And when I say, bringing my life into relationship with him, it doesn't just mean saying a Hail Mary before I go about my work. That can help us to make reference to Our Lady and make reference to God at the beginning of our work. That can be a helpful thing, but that's not it entirely. I want to work with him the whole time. I want to think of St. Joseph in the workshop with Jesus there. He doesn't have his whole attention on him. He has his attention on the wood that he's working with, but he knows whether he's there or not there. He's paying attention to Jesus being in the room. And that's what we want to work towards in everything that we're doing, is paying attention to Jesus being in the room, as it were, in the car, in the grocery line, in my life at all the different points in my life. And so just at the end of our work day, perhaps at 5 o'clock or something, to just stop and take a look back and see, where have I been throughout this day, and where was Jesus at 1 o'clock, at 2 o'clock, at 3 o'clock, at 4 o'clock, and see if I can't start tuning in more to his presence, making more acts of awareness, recollection in his presence, become more intentional about inviting him into this or that area of my life. And, again, knowing that this is a long-term process. It's not an overnight process. And so we just do little by little, and we work towards our goal, which is really to bring my whole life, whole heart, mind, soul, and strength into relationship with him.
Yeah, and what a beautiful answer. So we thank everyone for being with us this week. Again, do your homework and you'll see all the benefits that come through this. It's one thing, having been with Father for 7 years, is that what he says works, and when you allow it to become part of your essence, your life does improve. And that's certainly true. So thank you all for being with us, and we will be with you again next week.